Thanks a lot. Hello guys, sorry for keeping you waiting. I don't have any good excuse for being so much late, but I have a couple that are almost semi-interesting, because the meeting where I was actually with Microsoft about recommendation and the bleeding edge where we are, and then they were keep talking, and then I had to say, Seattle, we have to actually get to the right people now. So YLE is here. And some of these names you might be recognizing, like BBC. So YLE is BBC of Finland. Actually, in English, it's Finnish Broadcasting Company. And that means we are PSM, so Public Service Media. We are funded completely by the people, by the public of Finland through the tax-like money. So everybody has to pay it. It's about 450 million per year. And then we have to do everything that we do through it. And there is a specific law that states that we have to exist and we have to deliver according to the mission. This map I just made today because I didn't have the data earlier. This is all the other public service medias and a couple of the private ones as well, done as an TSSNE map, dimensional reduction from the questionnaire about signings and recommendations. So there you can see roughly who are working pretty much in the same way. And what we can say right away, that this is not like this is high, this is just one axis and the other axis, but these guys are roughly similar when it comes to how they treat signings, and also recommendations may be built on top of them. And then there are many other companies in the Europe, and some who are really not even that advanced. So this kind of information could be, of course, interesting if you would be providing recommending services and then thinking who would be your next customer. Maybe there are some groups here that are way more potential than the others. What I didn't do was this kind of profit mapping on top of this, so let me just give this as an introduction. There are a couple of things about this Mac. So one of them is this, getting the presentations ready. So recommendations. I've been having this about the same set in a couple of sessions with EBU especially. EBU is European Broadcasting Union. So there are all those kind of companies represented. And as you can see from the right-hand side, I'm just updating the dates every time I do the deck, because it applies pretty much every year. The movement is so slow. The vision is we need to have personal user experience, and it has to be good. So the personal was the thing that wasn't there until a couple of years ago. The user experience has been there for 10 years, and the recommendation is one ingredient to get there. One, because there are also many others. So we cannot do recommendations without having APIs, so that we actually have the back end completely separated from the device and the front ends that we are doing. There are multiple of them. We have to know quite a bit about the data that we do. We have to serve the business and also buy good contents. Maybe we are serving them through the dashboards. There are other means of reaching audience besides just the user interface and the interaction there. So for example, marketing automation, meaning fancy word for pushing spam through multiple channels. So we can also do that, and we should be doing it in a way that people don't unsubscribe all the time. And then there are, of course, recommendations. When we do all of that, those kind of red boxes, we get this kind of stuff, or some of it. And then we have to really lean on you kind of guys to know if that is happening. So for example, are we secure? How do we even know if we are secure? How do we know that we are secure when it comes to concepts that we haven't been measuring for the past 40 years? Extremely tricky. So there are new things, new developments like homomorphic encryptions, or there are other things like differential privacy. Then there are a bit of research how to measure differential privacy when it comes to the recommending engines. And we are slowly getting there, but we are not there yet. So I would say that anyone who's kind of interested in where to go, these kind of topics will start to creep in almost in any single application that is using machine learning. There's going to be some form of security involved because usually it's about data, about people. And at some point, maybe even the regulation is pushing it. So in a way that was being said that the recommending engines are kind of a killer app for machine learning, many things that recommendations are facing, the other applications are going to end up facing as well. So that's one way to get prepared. Yeah, but now that we know the kind of the business side of it, let's get a bit more into the ecosystem side of it. So what we do is that we have a lot of content. The catalog is quite big. And we have the delivery application. In our case, it's called Arena, video on demand platform. We have other platforms as well. If you are reading news, it's a different thing, maybe even different application. So there might be multiple of them. And then we have been setting up APIs to separate these two worlds, but then there are also APIs for external parties. There can be multiple. In one case, for example, we have been doing collaboration with Panasonic so that if you're buying big screen, they can show our content, but it's not our app that is presenting all the content. There are other third parties as well. There might be entertainment systems like in the cars that are constantly being developed. Some of them, like Tesla, is going to do things like they want. They have the new tab, and then everybody else is thinking, how can we get the tablet in car in the market in less than 10 years? So it's also a slow-moving market, but it will come. So we should be able to play with all of them and get all the events so that we can actually start to power the recommending engines. So when we do this from the point of view of let's measure things, the recommendations, they need to be able to serve all of different kinds of use cases. So not only the most simple one, what would user like to see right now, but also the future use cases for these different channels. Some of them that we might not be even controlling at all. So what we had a year ago was this, and why I'm showing this like past is that you can start to see a bit about the speed, how we can go forward, which is not like mind-blowingly big. We are not that speedy, but we have been doing a couple of tests. We have 5% of the population using YLE ID, the account. We have two types of different recommendations. We have explicit preferences for newsreader. So you say in your newsreading app that I want more about zombies. And then every time there is a zombie attack, you are going to be notified in your mobile app. The implicit recommendations for the video environment is based on the kind of normal collaborative filtering where people are getting clustered based on general tastes. And then by summing them up, we get the sense whether you might be liking it and some content should be really promoted to you. There are sub problems within there. So audio is a different thing. It's different type of media. People are consuming it in a different way. It's way more habitual. So either you are listening at the morning radio or TV, or you are not. But often you don't have both open at the same time. And people who have radio tend to leave it open. And it's like open throughout the day. So it's very different than what happens with video. Genres are acting differently. I'm going to show you one picture to kind of showcase how are the differences. Then there are these kind of things, enablers. We need to be able to collect the data and also do a bit of data science. So we started with 0 data scientists in company. Now we have 2 that are internally there. And in this group of people, I believe there have been 2 more that we've been talking to, maybe collaborating as well. So by talking to each other, you might even find who are those guys, and then you learn a bit more. And then we are also using data scientists who are in our contracting companies. So we are not trying to kind of have only our own staff. Actually, we are mostly about using contractors. And it's also the business of being public service media. We are dictated that we have to kind of make this kind of things happen. I should be here and giving the presentation. It's part of my job and part of the culture of giving value back to the society. So that's good. So I'm not doing business here, but I'm conducting my business. So what we were planning, we have to grow, we have to go to the marketing, and we have to be able to cross a couple of domains. Now let's jump forward where we are now. We have more ideas, which was good, but we are not yet at the 1 million. We have audio recommendations and a bit of genres as a metadata. We have been recommending across time and devices. The data collection is still in the cloud and it's working, but it's also getting better, but it's still not perfect. For example, we still don't have fast track for real-time events. We have only, let's say, 15 minutes delayed, and for the purposes of recommendation at the moment, it's completely okay. But when we go to the fast-moving targets like articles, we have to be a lot quicker, way more real-time. So there needs to be some work to be done. When it comes to the culture, we have way too little resources. So what we should do is more collaboration, and we try, not only with the universities, but also outside, like I was showing the EBU slide. Let's collaborate across Europe. So it's not only every single company like YLE doing their own thing. BBC is doing their own thing, we are as well, and then there are lots of people who are following the lead. Okay, on the right-hand side, what we still plan to do. Article recommendations is the one where we have been focusing for the latter part of the spring, and that is something we are going to continue. And it's extremely hard because they are fast-moving targets. It's very different than slow-moving content, which might be like valid for a month. And then when it comes to recommendation across services, it would be fun to put even more effort, for example, crossing language barrier. If you are Swedish-speaking Finn, you would be getting good content for both languages that you are probably using anyway. Good. Then there are lots of other things, and the list is of course endless, and what could be done could be kind of added on top of this, but a couple of things. We are doing a small test on speech literation. So we are using speech-to-text APIs and then trying to use that as a part of powering the recommendations, especially content-based recommendations. What we hope to gain from there is that especially audio recommendations would be gaining a lot. If you are listening something about Ukraine war, you would be getting more about Ukraine war to deepen your understanding of the situation. But if you are not really into politics at all, then you might like to skip it altogether. So text content-based recommendations with multiple different ways, and especially the fancier ways in the future, because Finnish is tricky. Simple methods don't cut usually for Finnish, for example, word counting and such. On the right-hand side, you can see something that is like AI-related, like robot journalism. We have test-driven that already twice, and we would like to do more of it. It's very hard to start to do really generative text for Finnish. So it's very simple, almost rule-based engine at the moment, but it's still working okay when it comes to very specific topics like let's make sports results, or now during the elections, let's report on tiny communities. We have very limited manpower, so this kind of automation might be actually for the benefit of all the public. Very good. Gdpr is going to be one of the very big forces driving us forward. But back to the reason, why are we doing all of this? A couple of slides in Finnish, unfortunately, but the key point on the left-hand side is that we are reaching quite well people in YLE Arena for both age groups, above and below 45. It is around 35% of the population. However, on the right-hand side, you can see that there has been the red curve coming already a couple of years ago, and that's Netflix. And it's already going above our competitors. And the picture doesn't even have this one, which is YouTube, which is like 3 times bigger than anything else. So we are losing on the competition, and the competition is not between the Finns, it's competition that is global. To get there, to start to do the personal user experience, we have actually implemented it in 3 places, and we try to go from a person to the person from the normal broadcasting. So in broadcasting, the video on demand platform would be something like this, that everybody's getting the same. But we introduced first one strip where you can get the recommendations that are driven by your personal preferences, by your existing user history. Then we have these kind of packages, like programs that are having good humor in them. And here we have a mixture. The top is chosen by the editorial board. And then everything else that might be like hundreds of items, those are being organized by the algorithm. So it's human and computer working together. And then on the third one, when you have one item, you can see something else that's similar to it. So this is a bit like Amazon kind of recommendations. People who have bought this are probably going to buy also that. It's not exactly the same because we are not having any shopping baskets or anything like that, but we are utilizing the item factors from the collaborative filtering. So actually what we have done since was that we added the 4th place, which is the top at the top left, and that's having the huge amount of the traffic, the biggest amount on the page. So I'm going to talk a bit more about that, but there are also other places. So we added in the Swedish version, then for the mobile and tablets, big screens which are very different. And for the Swedish version, there was already a bar like that, so we went forward and made it not editorial, but really personalized for you. So that was very incremental, simple change, but if we would like to play with the language, it would be very, very hard. Okay, so we started with the series, but then we also try to add the items. And the items is very hard to say. Sometimes you want the item and sometimes you want especially the series. For example, when it comes to the political programs, you might dislike all of them except the one where they're talking about the topic that is dear to you. And that's hard. So what do we plan to do in the near future? I was saying already about the article recommendations, but also the new. And the new content, new items problem, of course, have been there forever. And what we try to do is that we don't try to walk through that path completely. We try to take, of course, the best of the breed from the literature and do the simplest things first and just re-implement what people know works quite well already. And then we can start to think, are there something that we can do differently and really start to kind of innovate in there? We have not so far been innovating because what we have to innovate is the way of working, the culture of the middle sentence. We didn't know whether humans are doing good job, and everybody in the company is thinking they are doing great job. But they don't realize that the broadcasting was past and the future is personalized service. That we can scale if we have hundreds of people to about hundreds of different use cases. But we definitely cannot scale to the size of millions of users who would be having their personal tastes served. So what we did was we tried to combine these two. We take the editorial list, and later on the list there are these couple of items I've marked. We are having a rolling window going through all of that. And we are also shuffling the rest of the list to give you the items that might be most beneficial to you. So the list is completely done by human, but the reordering is done by computer. And the first item is always chosen. So we get to show everything that the humans have been selecting on the list. But then also 4 items out of 5 we are replacing with the ones the computer thinks might be the best for you. So we try to do both, be editorial and also personal. And when there will be the next time step and the first item A is not anymore in the top of the window, we are showing the second item, the B, even though you might not like it. So we are taking a bit of hit, but we are editorially satisfactory. And then the rest of the items in the window are maybe better suited to you. And so on it goes. So now the question is, does it work? So we did this experiment and we saw that when we moved from the fixed window to the reorganized window, the stream starts were growing by 40%. And for Media House, these questions are getting easier if you address the question in this way. You have your front page, would you like 40% more stream starts out of it? Usually the people are optimizing for 1 digit, or in extreme cases, maybe you get percentage points better stream starts. But in this case, when it's more than 10 times better than the normal methods, the answer is very easy. Of course, can we do more of this? Where else could we be using it? So by doing this kind of experiment, we can start to unlock it. Okay, so what's next? We are concentrating on the articles. As you can see, it's quite messy, whether it's the front page or the article itself. What to show at the bottom of the middle, read next is the key question. But there's so much other noise to be gone through as well. And that, of course, also in the Swedish side. And in Swedish version, they already have these kind of things which we call like collecting pages, where we try to show everything about a topic. In this case, phenomena about schools. Everything we have about schools. So that would be then the next step after that. But since this is data science and artificial intelligence, I want to show you a bit about also what we have done when it comes to data science. We haven't been concentrating on it because we try to roll these out and understand how they work. So we are getting to the understanding part, but it doesn't always work. This is what the people have been actually experiencing. We calculate the model, we make the recommendations, and then you have 3 times the same. Even though the pictures are changing, there is the same program 3 times. So then we find out that there is a bug and we fix it. The recommending system methods are really affecting the results. In this case, this is a bit tricky to explain, so let me jump here. When we do the personal recommendations, and that's like the benchmark, working the best, how much worse we would be doing if we do the popular recommendations instead. And now we know that it's about 30% less. So we are beating easy benchmark, but that is usually working quite well. And especially mass media would like to totally continue the popular items. Then we have 2 variations here. So out of the personal, what if we don't take the top of the list, but instead we sample a bit towards kind of to the bottom to the list, meaning we take some of the top, but we might sometimes get something a bit more, not longer tail, but maybe even, let's say, item 100 or even 1,000, maybe not 10,000 anymore. So the answer is that then we are getting 20% less clicks through it, but we also increase the diversity. And this is a question the people on the private side don't have to consider. Do we take less money? Because for us, we should be maybe taking less money, meaning content used, if we also can bring more width to the catalog that is being served, so that people are consuming more different types of contents and getting wider point of views. That's the task for us. What we don't know is that what is the proper way to balance these two. We don't want to take 20% hit, but if we can gain 50% of diversity on the way there, maybe we can. So we have to investigate the proper trade-offs, like in all businesses. So we had to believe that it actually matters when people are using the content. So now this is again how well it is working on x-axis, but the y-axis is through the day. So here we have midnight, and then the morning hours. Normally people start to eat breakfast, keep working this period, and then here is the prime time between 19 to 23. And as you can see, this is working quite well here and here, and everything else is like going backwards. And even though the error bars are huge, we can see that there's almost like steady pattern, and especially during nighttime when there are few events, few people watching, we are doing the worst. So we can conclude even with such error bars that we are not working that well during night. And maybe something could be or should be done for it. And what we did is that we actually take that hour of the day into the matrix factorization and try to get value out of it, that you get different recommendations based on when you start to play, but also with what kind of device. That on the mobile, you might be getting shorter content than you would be getting on let's say, big screen home setting where you might be watching for 3 hours. We also know that different types or genres of the content work differently. So here we have the average, which is 1, and here we have drama that is working 5 times better than anything else. Which is also maybe not surprising considering this is the business of Netflix. And the method we are using is coming from the competition arranged by Netflix for this kind of business. So maybe we should have different types of algorithms for this kind of content instead. But no one has been making the competition and there hasn't been so much literature what should be done here. But it also means there's a business opportunity there, especially for PSMs, maybe even for others. So what are these that are not working well? There's science and learning, then there's the culture and music. And it's actually not that hard to understand that music doesn't perform well. If you like a band and you don't like the other, you are not watching every episode. You are only watching the episodes where your favorite band is actually being playing and showcasing music. Other thing we've been fighting against is that we are having very tiny impact. So we want to be more prominent. And this is a picture I made to show where we are losing all the clicks of the page. So the menu is getting all of these. And the items on the menu are getting these. These people are arriving and bouncing away. They don't do anything at all. And then these are the active people. And out of this, they are the curated guys. They are the guys going for the humor kind of package. And then here is the recommending engine. Here we are doing all the calculations, how well we are doing. So what if we could be more prominent and take maybe all of these clicks as well and boost them with 40%? And that is then the direction, of course, what we started to do. What I'm trying to say here is that this would have been maybe a good picture to start with and not do at the end of the project to find out why you are not making a dent. Also, there are reasonings why we need data science and data scientists, especially when it comes to AI. So here I'm showing you one A/B test that we are having. If the dot is at the bottom, it means for that day, the treatment didn't work. So the control was better. So for the first 3 weeks or so, we were doing worse. For the next 3 weeks or so, we were doing hugely better. We were almost like 50% better than the other. And then for the next couple of weeks, we were almost break even. So depending when we start the exercise, we get completely different understanding. Are we doing better or worse than the control? And these are with our volume. So there are millions of people clicking all the time and watching a lot of content. Still, the volume is not enough if you take into account how much fluctuation there is in the content. So if our president dies, many people tend to watch it, regardless whether they also are watching Game of Thrones. And of course, we couldn't know that it's going to come, and the algorithm neither. And in the beginning, we don't have any data, so it's very hard to adjust and adapt. But if we see that every couple of days there's going to be a big event that we have to be quick to react. We have like slow-moving model and then maybe fast-moving model that's almost hand-curated. At the moment, we don't have that. So we are playing only with one. All of these events that this picture is showing were something like 1 million event, and the outcome of the exercise is that there is no positive effect to be found within the error marginals. So we couldn't get the treatment really work. but we wasted almost a couple of months for that. So of course that's life. But then there are these other types of lives. So I try to leave you with maybe a bit more positive note. There's a once in a lifetime moment that is happening right now, actually elsewhere in the world. In China, people are playing Go. This was a year ago when there was a Lee Sedol match that he famously didn't win anymore the computer. In the match 5, it was getting boring. So the guy who was doing all the explaining what's happening in this abstract game, he was even starting yawning. Of course, they were long sessions, like 6 hours in a row with no break. So if nothing happens, you start to yawn, and that's natural. It wasn't the description of the game. Actually, the game is quite nice. However, that was once in a lifetime moment, and most of the Western world was completely missing it. Maybe not you guys, but most of the people. And it's especially odd because at the same time, these guys were saying that look what happens in China. 60 million viewers for that. In Korea, people were stopping at the railway station and staring at the game, maybe missing their trains and just watching it. Altogether, in Asia, there were almost 200 million people watching these games of Go. And if you put that into perspective, Super Bowl is about 250 million people if you count other countries besides US. So we are roughly on the same ballpark, but this didn't make such a dent here. And at the same time, this was exactly the moment where we can put our finger on, where computer was beating us on intuition that's easy to measure. In chess, that didn't happen. We were thinking that maybe if we make artificial intelligence for chess, it's just going to kind of emerge the intelligence. And then eventually it was just very tedious amount of tree search and computations, and then you got to the end of it. You were beating humans. So we kind of failed on that. And then we went on doing other things. And now comes along deep networks. So the whole deep learning is, of course, just lots of hype. But then there are these kind of moments which happen. Millions of people are realizing right now, today, computer is beating us on a human kind of features, intuition to be specific. Why I'm saying right now, I mean just a couple of hours ago, 5 wise men from China were playing together against this computer. I haven't been watching the stream, so I don't know the outcome of it. If you know, don't tell me, because that's my evening exercise. I'm going to watch it entirely. It's going to be fun. Anyway, now we're at the point where even the team of people who are experts cannot anymore beat the computer on a game of intuition. So it's going to be amazing. And why do we need this? We need this because for people, this is obvious that if you have YLE content in YouTube, this is not what should happen. Even though this might be optimizing so many KPIs. There might be lots of traffic, lot of ads, lot of people going to the porn sites. Still, if this is YLE content, like the topmost clearly is, and then even the titles of them, the rest are, this shouldn't happen. But for normal, really stupid artificial intelligence, he cannot play along with the spammers, at least not yet, at least not on an intuitive level. And we can add these other questions. Are we creating or are we removing the filter bubbles? So we have the tower, it's still there. It's still sending broadcast. Most of us, we are still consuming a lot of broadcast. But then there are these screens as well. There are the APIs running green. There is the artificial intelligence providing you some form of recommendations that more often than not people like because they are personal, they are better. I don't have to go through all of the content to find something of interest. Therefore, the killer case is still there and we are moving towards it. That's the old and the new. Thanks.
Thanks for the talk. I have 2 questions. So The first one is you mentioned in your talk on one of the slides that GDPR is really interesting. I don't really know what that is. So what is it?
Very good
Maybe
question.
I can ask the second question as well, and then
Yeah.
you can.
Okay.
And the second question was these article recommendations. You mentioned that right now you do articles which are like 15 minutes old, and then you like the algorithm runs on it. And then what sort of news would be interesting, which people would want to know within like a couple of seconds? Like, so that's what you're probably.
Yes.
So like, what news is important enough that you would not want to know in a couple of seconds? Like.
Very good. There are two questions, and the first one is so big I'm going to lose the second one. So keep the mic and remind me if I don't come to the second question. So GDPR is an acronym that not only techies are using, because it's coming from European Union. So it's, what is it, General Data Protection Directive or something like that. So European Union is saying that in a year, actually, I think it was yesterday, in a year. So 1 year from now on, GDPR is going to be in effect, and it will affect companies in many, many different ways. The law then dictates that every European Union citizen can ask, what do you know about me? And the companies have to report. They have to provide you some means of access of your data. Now, this data also seems to be so that you can access the data. So you don't only get like PDF back, but it is being interpreted in a way that you should be getting the data back like as a CSV file and as a file, not as a paper copy. So there are huge changes considering how most of the world already is operating, especially European Union. In most places you hardly get even PDF. And it should be quite timely. Then there are even more extreme versions of this, which is that you should be able to press a transfer button, transfer or export my data from a service to another service. And they are thinking that maybe there should be interoperability format, so that whatever I'm sending from YLE can be used by musician, there's a logo over there, if it's somehow applicable. Maybe they get an idea who are the artists I'm interested in, therefore they can make their service better for you. So there are multiple things when it comes to GDPR, but the kind of possibility of data transfer within European Union companies is going to be huge. And it's very different than what United States is doing. But if you have Facebook and you have shitloads of data, you are protecting it in a way that no one actually can get it in any way possible. So it's completely different that the law says that no, Facebook, you have to start to give the data. And then the key question would be maybe in a year that how we as YLE, we could be taking the Facebook data and start to utilize it, of course, for the good of the public. We are not tracking, we are not intelligence organization. And the key point in the GDPR is that it has to be through consent. So Facebook cannot send your data to me, but if you say to the Facebook that they have to send it, then they have to go according to the law and really make the data move around. So that's one thing. Now, when it comes to the recommending engines, it's very, very interesting what's going to happen. For example, the concept of derived data is not explicit in the GDPR. So if the recommending engine is doing user factors, kind of characterizing the user, does the law mean that I have to send them to the third-party company if you request? It's unclear. It is clear that if we are accumulating the history, that we have to send, but the factors, we don't know yet. The lawyers are trying to find it out, and of course, European-wide. And then it's even more tricky when we get to the security. What if me sending the factors of your data, like the summarization, is leaking data of hers? Can I do it if you are requesting because I'm also telling about other people? Maybe not specifically, but something about them. And if that something can be start to be kind of gathered and then analyzed and then de-anonymized, are we opening up doors that we shouldn't, because we most of all should respect the privacy? So it's very unclear what's going to happen, very exciting year, but my guess is that this is going to be a big market in so many ways, not only for lawyers, that we should be thinking how to take advantage, hopefully in a positive way, because the negative one is going to backlash anyway. And of course we are good guys, so it's easy for us. But very interesting. And the second part was...
the article recommendation.
Yes. So when the new news comes, it's almost always like almost meaningless for you or breaking news. And the breaking news, if it's very big, for most of the people, it's going to be in telly. Everyone is going to see that there's a news segment, and then the breaking news is going as a scroller underneath, and then they come back to that in every 15 minutes and so on. So that's the old way. Now, in the modern world, we don't know what's breaking for you unless we use something like recommendation to find it out and serve you better. Also, some breaking news might be old news to you, or it might be uninteresting news to you. But whenever breaking happens, it's a matter of seconds. Very rarely you like to learn about the Twin Towers crashing a week later. Either you are in New York and you want to get a personal shield on you, or it's just interested in what's happening there, or you don't think about it at all. But it's very rarely that you are somewhere in between. But for most of the news or information of the day, it's way more balanced. It's not like bipolar, either or. It's somewhere in between for different people, different news. So on average, you might be reading, let's say, 30 articles. So maybe 3 are breaking news. And even those should be personalized, but especially the rest of them, they need to be personalized. And now we are not even talking about very advanced concepts. So can someone still remember max headroom? Max headroom? Okay, someone is nodding. So that was MTV, was it 80s or early 90s? Computer-generated talking head. So we have a concept of news, and 20 years ago we had a concept of computer-generated talking head. So why on earth no one is putting these two things together to deliver personal news? I don't know. We are not doing it because we are broadcasting the old news. Maybe someone who's innovative might be thinking along future. I don't know, maybe even you. But there were a couple of points. So news is quick, or it's just too much of it. And in either case, we have to be personalizing.